Hello and welcome to the morning Rabble. Today I'm joined by Brian and Andy. How are you guys doing?
Good,
Thank you.
Good stuff, guys. All right, we're straight in with the questions already. We love that. Within about seconds of going live. What time do you start? Right now,
No.
mate. Back on 11 a.m. If anybody's ever late, it will not be me. I always try and get us on at exactly the right time. It's only Martin that's ever 2-3 minutes late. So if anybody's getting any criticism, throw it his way because it's never me. It's late. Right, straight into it. There was obviously chat yesterday about Morgan Whitaker, which obviously we spoke about for a good period of yesterday's pod. So today we're going to touch on Todd Cantwell, one of the sort of bigger sort of chats that you have on Twitter is under Football Insider. Yeah, again, I'm not saying he's the oracle of the transfer rumours or the guy that gets everything right, but he said that a bid had been accepted for Todd Cantwell and that he was going to be speaking to Rangers. Obviously, we don't know if that's the case, but Martin thought that was a great headline, so we're going with that. I'll come to you first, Andy. What kind of player do you think he is, and what do you think he can bring to what we've not got at the moment?
He's definitely a kind of player we're looking for, that kind of technical player. Other than Kent, I'd really say we are lacking in proper technical players. And a decent goal and assist output as well, which is something else we're lacking in. And for a free we'll maybe need to pay a bit of money if we want him in January. I think even though his career's kind of curtailed a bit since he kind of broke onto the scene, for me it seems like a no-brainer.
No, I mean, I think you're right. I think if the club can get the deal done for a sensible fee, especially at the end of the day, we shouldn't be overpaying for somebody in the January window if he's going to be a free agent in the summer. It's got to be a deal that works for Norwich, for Rangers, and obviously for the player. Speaking to Kerry yesterday, he obviously was trying to find out a bit more information on Todd Cantwell. He does watch a lot of Championship football, to be fair to Kerr, so he knows a lot of people and stuff like that. So it was interesting. It sounds like he's a kid who a few years ago was obviously right at it. He was playing well. He was sought after by quite a few clubs in England. But he's kind of lost his way a little bit. And I guess I'll come to you on this, Brian. I think this is like the type of player that we are going to chase, aren't it? It's maybe guys who are still young enough. You know, he's only 24. He's still got that ability because you don't lose the ability you had.
No.
But it's all about attitude, and if the manager can get the best out of him. And Michael Beale, the fact that we've obviously basically been linked to him since very early on in this window, clearly rates the kid highly enough to go out and try and sign him.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously we all remember him when he burst onto the scene with Norwich in the Premier League. You know, he was getting touted for big moves away to, I think it was West Ham, for something touching 50 million at one point I seen. So, you know, he was thought of very highly, and that's a sort of move that if you get, then obviously the England sort of selection comes along, and then you're into another stratosphere of valuation and players that you're playing with. So, but he's obviously not hit the heights in the last couple of seasons. Injuries, perhaps, confidence. He's maybe just not feeling particularly wanted where he is. I think I said this yesterday. You know, there's players need to be feel like feels though they want to be wanted where they are. So he's obviously not feeling very loved where he is, and he's obviously just needing a fresh start somewhere else. So he's definitely a sort of player that we're, as Andy was just saying, we're looking for. You know, we've got with Tillman on loan. Kent, well, does he stay beyond the summer? Yeah. So it's certainly an area or expertise that we're looking at as being technical and sort of these intricate sort of passes in the last third. So he's the sort of player that we're looking at.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up that comparison with Ryan Kent because obviously both of those players are in exactly the same position right now. Mm-hmm. You know, Ryan Kent's in the last, whatever that is, kind of 4.5, 5 months his deal. Same with Todd Cantwell. Both of these guys might well be looking for a fresh start in their career. You know, it does seem as though at Norwich they don't see a future for the lad. And I think it's one of the things with football, isn't it? It's amazing how high your stock can be at one point, then 6 months or a year later, your stock is almost like sort of gone. Like nobody cares. Nobody's really maybe on the lookout anymore. Like it is crazy that this kid was valued in like the 20, 30, 40, 50 million pound range. I mean, like, how do you go for that to basically running down your contract, and then there's maybe not that many suitors after you at that point? That's the crazy nature of football, and it shows you that, Arnori's now kind of looking back, regretting maybe we should have cashed in and took the money when we did, because now he's going to likely walk away for a small 6-figure fee. And that's, I mean, and that's football, and I'm sure there'll be some criticism of the Rangers board over Ryan Kent as well, to a point, because I believe there has been a few bids come in for Ryan. I couldn't tell you what the values are, but I think the fact there's been enough out there to suggest there was bids put in, and now he's potentially going to walk away for free. But this is the thing with football, isn't it? Like, every decision you make, it's either the right one or the wrong one, and a lot of these decisions are usually proved right 1, 2, 3 years down the line, and this is the reality of what happens within football.
I suppose in our own scenario, our own situation, the same as for Morelos. He was off. Well, allegedly Lille bidded 16 million. We didn't accept. So, there's the chance you take. If you don't take the money while the player's hot, then there's the only ways down after that, isn't it?
Yep. We'll touch on some of the comments quickly, because obviously we do have a little bit of time this morning to kind of take some more questions. One of the questions for Matt Gunner is saying that he was saying it's an interesting one with Lundstrom. I think come the summer, he is in the last year of his deal. So clearly that is another decision to be made. And you see, when you look at Lundstrom, he obviously plays a lot of football. He obviously plays a bit deeper in this team at times. Sometimes he does play a little bit higher, not that high very often, but he is capable of scoring a few goals. Come the summer, is it one of those ones where you reward Lundstrom with a new deal, or do you think that the manager might look and say, well, for the wages that we're paying this guy, we could maybe sell him, get a transfer fee, and use his wages to maybe get 1 or 2 other players in that might help us out more for the first team?
I can see Michael Beale wanting to extend his contract, just the way he spoke about him previously since he's came back in. But to be honest, I thought Lundstrom would have kicked on a bit since Michael Beale came back in, but the last few games he just seems really sloppy. Some of his passing, like at weekend there, 2 terrible passes ended up in 2 Rangers players being booked because his passing was just so far off it. Yeah. So I can see him getting another deal just because we know what he can do.
But no, I think that's fair. I think recently the manager's actually come out and said he would like to get Lundstrom on a new deal. But look, this is the thing as a supporter, everybody's going to have an opinion on player. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is what it is. I think that's why the podcasts are great. You can get everybody's opinion on individual players, whether they rate them, whether they don't rate them. Obviously, getting back a few years ago, there was a thing known as like Rangers class. Is he Rangers class? Is he good enough? I think these things are obviously different depending on the age you are. I mean, I grew up in an era where I was very lucky that Rangers were signing, like England internationals when I grew up. That time is probably long gone now when you look at the market that England now works in and the money that even the bottom 6, the bottom 8 clubs can spend compared to Rangers. So I think there's a reality there. William, thanks very much for the £5 super like, mate. I appreciate that. What do you think Wilson wanted loans in, and that's why Beale came out early to say he didn't want them to be loans? I'll come to you on that, Brian. Obviously, in January, the loan market tends to be a little bit stronger than the permanent deals, just due to clubs not really wanting to sell players because it's obviously really difficult to replace them. What's your opinion on the January window, and is it a fair criticism that maybe Michael Beale has forced the hand of Ross Wilson and the board by coming out very early on and saying, I don't want loan deals, I only want permanent deals, and I want 2 or 3 players to come in?
I would suggest Beale was slightly, I wouldn't say naughty, but he was certainly laying down the marker that this is what I want under no uncertain terms. It was obviously a challenge he's put down to the board to say, this is what I'm wanting. I'm not wanting, as you say, loans. I'm not wanting anything. I'm wanting people that's going to come in and make a difference to the team. I'm not wanting squad fillers. He was very clear what he wanted. Personally, as far as, for your own club, I hate the January window because it's almost to the point where you're just panic buying or just getting people for the sake of it. There's not an awful lot of. I just don't remember very many good deals in January that we've pulled off. It's been very few and far between. We've obviously pulled off one or two that have been good, but the vast majority are not very good. And it's almost you're getting players from other clubs that they don't want either. So it's so hit or miss the January window. And but I must admit I did enjoy Beale saying exactly what he wanted, and I'm not too sure the board were too pleased with that, but that's what the manager wants.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is why. I mean, the one thing you would say about Michael Beale is he's fairly honest in his opinions when it comes to things, whether that's after match reactions, whether that's press conferences. He probably tells you more than what we've been told under many other managers. Some people might like that, some people might not. This is the thing that you have that Gio was quite. He didn't give much away, Gio. He didn't say very much. He wouldn't really tell you when a player was out injured or when a player was returning or how long he was out for or if we were interested in anybody. Michael Beale's a wee bit more, don't get me wrong, he doesn't give everything away, but he gives you wee kind of tidbits, doesn't he, that you feel, all right, okay, so maybe somebody's signing this week or maybe this is happening. And I think that's a good thing, to be honest. I like it. And I think it's good to get a bit of honesty. Let's see, what else have we got? Stephen saying that Lundstrom, Morelos, and believe it or not, Kent are all replaceable for younger players on lower wages who are maybe just as good, if not better. I'll come to you on that, Andy. Obviously, those three players are obviously earning good money at Rangers, and that's not really like a hidden fact, obviously, when it comes to us. Is it fair, like, to say that come the summer that we could replace these type of guys with younger players, or do you think that the manager I'll still want to keep maybe one or two of those just because obviously he knows the quality they've got and how important they can be to a team, and it is difficult to replace these guys at times?
I think it would be difficult to replace Morelos on top form, but it's been a long time since we've seen Morelos in top form, so I could quite easily see Morelos going and then being replaced by someone. I think there's talk of someone from the Eastern European League. I can't remember what a striker there. But on Lundstrom and Kent, I could see him doing everything he can to keep Kent and Lundstrom purely because he knows them and he knows what they can do. But on Morelos, I could see him going.
Yeah, look, I think it is going to be an interesting summer. I know we're obviously just in the January window, but I'm sure the manager is thinking ahead and he'll know what he wants and who he wants. I think as we've touched on some of the other pods, not just the morning ones, that it's not just that there's players out of contract this summer. There's quite a lot of players out of contract next summer as well, which is a big thing for the manager to now start to look ahead, because he continues to talk about adding players for 2023, 2024 and 2025. So if that's the case, he must be thinking 6 months and obviously upwards of 18 months down the line, because we don't want the same problems that we're now having with Morelos and Kent that we had with Goldson before happening the following year. So I think it's important this summer that if players can't agree a new contract within the June-July period, that they're sold, because it allows us time to then replace these guys if we do have targets lined up, because it's not really great that as a club, I mean, I suppose you could say that maybe the Goldson one was something that the club felt as though they could still go over the line, but it's a huge risk to let the guy's contract basically run out and then agree a new contract. I get the feel with Morelos and Kent that isn't the same, and it would be that by the end of this window, I would imagine Rangers will know one way or the other whether either player is genuinely interested in renewing. But we'll obviously find out more as the months go on.
It really wouldn't surprise me if a bid came in for Morelos if Morelos went in January. I could see that happen.
I think
more than Kent.
Yeah, look, 100%, mate. And I think the thing is, if there's money there and the club feel as though it's an acceptable amount, and Michael Beale feels as though he can get somebody in for not just for the next 6 months, but for the next 2.5, 3.5 years, if he thinks he can do that deal, I wouldn't be surprised if we did that. But until somebody puts money on the table, then we don't really know where we are on that. But see, at the end of the day, see when a player's almost out of contract and somebody puts money there, it does change the game. That's the matter, that so everything that happens between now and the end of this window, I'll dictate what happens in the second half of the season and moving forward into next season. Because when one player leaves, that generally seems to kind of sort of open the door, doesn't it? And then things just start to move. So it might just be that there's a transfer waiting to happen somewhere else, and then somebody comes in and tries to bid for a Kent or a Morelos or a Glenn Kamara or somebody else, and then that's where it all starts to go. So I think we've definitely got interesting next 10, 12, 13, 14 days, in this window to see who's still here come the end of it.
My only concern is that I can't see anybody seriously bidding for Morelos because the condition he's in and how he's playing, I just don't see anybody even looking at him.
No,
that's my
only concern. That Mexican club and that is that.
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, if these clubs are interested, it might just be that they'll take him in the summer where there's no fee involved, and that's what they'll be looking to do. Steve is making a fair point, not saying that they all should go just that we can replace them. Yeah, mate, I think that's what we were trying to touch on. We accept that, that not all three of them might go. We're just saying that obviously it's sometimes never as easy to replace guys when they've been here for so long and they've done such a good job. I think most Rangers fans, so look at Morelos and look at the fee we paid for him and look at what we've got out of him. So there's not really any real criticism of Morelos. We paid £1 million for the guy. He's done a hell of a job for us, especially in Europe. I mean, the money he's made from like the European runs in terms of helping Rangers is absolutely massive. The goals that he scored, the importance of the goals that he scored as well were absolutely huge. None more so than the one against Legia Warsaw that sent us into the group stage. I mean, that alone must have been worth several millions of pounds. What else have we got quickly just before we move on to our next subject? Okay, we'll move on to the next subject because a lot of the stuff's just the same. I'm going to touch on obviously Morgan Whitaker quickly. Yesterday, obviously, after we did the podcast, a bit more kind of information came out about him saying that the bid was around £1 million and that Swansea might be looking for closer to 2. If that's the case, Brian, is that a fair fee for a guy that's basically still got 2.5 years left in his contract, has only recently turned 22, and is clearly somebody that the manager thinks can come in and add a bit of extra quality to this squad?
Probably from a Swansea point of view, it's probably a fair enough sort of amount. As a buying club, you're always looking to knock down the price and try and get it a little bit cheaper. It's just a case of what's the resolve of the selling club. Do they need to sell him? Do they need to get him out the door wages wise? It's all ifs, buts, and maybes, and it's. I mean, I wouldn't say he's on an astronomical amount of money at Swansea, but championship wages will be pretty decent. So I wouldn't say £2 million for a guy at 22 is obviously groundbreaking sort of transfer fee, but I would, from their point of view, it probably is a fair price. But for us, obviously, we're trying to get the price down. I wouldn't be paying $2 million, but that's just me. I'd be trying to barter down the price a little bit. I mean, could we do swap deal with anybody that we've got? Is there anybody in our squad that they would potentially like to do a deal with, like Matondo? He's from, obviously things haven't worked out for that lad. So there's lots of other ways to do the deal, I suppose. But it probably, from their side, it probably is a fair deal. But obviously, we want to get the price down a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the guys, here's a CGM after yesterday's great question about French toast, right? He's wanting to know steak and haggis pie or Scotch pie for lunch. Andy, what you thinking?
Scotch pie.
Brian?
Steak and haggis, that's too fancy for a lunch.
Steak and haggis all day.
Oh, there you go. See, that's a man for up that neck of the woods, so he's a steak and haggis kind of guy. I'm more of a steak and gravy man myself, I'm not going to lie. I like a wee steak and gravy pie out of Aldi. That's my wee treat every so often when I buy it. Right, okay, we'll move on to a kind of similar point to what you made there. Do you think in this window, Andy, that we might look to loan one or two players out who are not really seen as first-team starters? I mean, like, obviously, you can talk about Matondo. He's clearly not really hit the ground running since he signed. We obviously paid a couple of £1 million for this guy. Yeah, he's still young. He can still develop. He can still improve. But it just doesn't seem to have happened.
No.
Obviously, if that type of deal arose, And obviously, Brian makes a fair point. Obviously, Matondo's Welsh. It's like, could Rangers say, we'll offer 1.5 or whatever for the boy Whitaker, and we'll loan you Matondo for the rest of the season. Since you've lost a winger to us, we will loan you a winger for the rest of the season. Do you think that's the type of deal that Rangers could do?
It probably is more the type of deal that they're wanting to do, because I can't see people coming in and paying anything for our players. And like, there's so many squad fillers that need off the books, and to be honest, I can't see a lot of teams actually putting in a transfer fee for them. Maybe get a fair few need to go out on loan. Even just a couple of the youngsters, I'd like to see Lowry go out on loan. If he's not going to get proper minutes for us, I'd like to see him go out and get proper game time, 90 minutes every week. 20 minutes here and there is not enough at his age and his ability. You've seen at the B team when he went back into the Lowland League, he's far too good for that, and he's maybe just not quite at the level for the first team of our team. So there needs to be a bridging gap there between that level and this. And I think for him to get out on loan would probably do him the world of good. And I think a couple of other players that just aren't playing get out on loan, and hopefully they might kickstart their career, and we could maybe even get a transfer fee out of them if they go to somewhere else and actually they get a run of games and start playing well. But Matondo, I think he would be one that I would really like to see get out on loan if somebody's going to take his wages.
Yeah.
But I can't see somebody taking, well, his reported wages. I can't see somebody taking him and paying the full wage that we're paying him, which would be the ideal situation, but I can't see it.
Yeah, look, if those like sort of rumours are true, then it is a lot of money. Whether that is the truth or not, then only the club and the player and his agent, etc., know that. We'll just get back to CGM's point quickly. Caroline's saying she likes haggis, turnip and potato pie. Don't think I've ever seen that, but sounds interesting. Aldo
Never
saying he's
heard
at
of that.
now we're talking
steak
a wee steak bake. I do like a steak bake, mate. Stephen saying he only got a cheesy pasta.
Cheesy pasta.
It's not a bad shout, to be fair, mate. I mean, I like it. It's not a bad shout. All right, we'll move on to the kind of last 10 minutes of the pod. We're going to talk about tonight's game. Obviously, the game's on a plastic pitch, which is never ideal. I think Michael B I think he was trying to be nice when he did his press conference. He was trying not to be too cheeky about the whole having to play at Livingston on the Astro and Kelly on the Astro. It's obviously not something that's very well.
Probably a better pitch than we played on Sunday.
Yeah, look, I think it's one of those ones where I wonder if certain players get into these games like sort of mentally thinking differently because it's a plastic pitch. I mean, for instance, the B team game yesterday was supposed to be on the grass pitch, like the number one pitch on the academy side, but unfortunately, due to the cold weather, the game was moved on to the Astro, and that meant that a couple of players weren't able to play because it was on the Astro. So I'll come to you, Brian. See, whenever you see that Rangers are due to play on a plastic pitch, is there a fear there when it comes to certain players in terms of if they start, you think, you know what, we don't need these guys breaking down, let's take them out?
Absolutely. I mean, we had Jamie Murphy when he was at Rangers, done his ACL down at Kilmarnock, that very pitch. And I believe they're not going to water the AstroTurf either for us before the game. So to make it, obviously they'll set the pitch up and for how they believe they want the game played. So I've always got the fear of somebody doing something wrong in these AstroTurf pitches because I don't believe in them. I don't think they're right for top flight football. I've always got the fear one of our players is going to come a cropper, do his ACL, his ankle. I mean, at least with the grass, if you do a quick turn, your feet go with the sort of turn, whereas the Astro, there's no giving it at all. Once your foot's planted, that is it. So yeah, I've always got a big fear that one of our players are going to do it because it's happened to us in the past. So it's one of these games you just want to win, get out, no injuries, and that's it. It could be the ugliest 1-0 win ever, and you really don't care. But it's just 3 points, no injuries, and get up the road.
I'll just touch on this point that Michael makes. I know he was injured at the time, but is it realistic to think Zach Lovelace could get a start in the top team? Well, it was good to see Zach back yesterday. He also played for the B team against Partick Thistle in the Glasgow Cup. And Zach looked back to his normal best. You know, he's strong. He runs with the ball well. He is a very good goal scorer when he gets into good areas. He's still to improve, Zach. You know, remember, I think he's only just turned 17, so still very young, you know, and he's still got to develop a bit. But look, when you look at the players we have in the B team, guys like Robbie Ure, guys like Zach Lovelace in terms of at the top end of the pitch, yeah, look, they might end up being on the bench in some games between now and the end of the season, the way things are going. You know, especially with Roof. If Roof's injury proves to be worse than what they're first fearing, there's 100% a chance there that Robbie or Zach could end up being on the bench and might even get some minutes on the pitch at some point. Probably if we hadn't drew a Premiership team in the Cup, there might have been an opportunity to see maybe one or two more players in the squad for the Cup game on Saturday. However, I don't think the manager can take that game lightly by any stretch of the imagination. And I think it'll be a fairly strong squad that does play on Saturday. But if we'd maybe drew Championship League One opposition, I think there was a decent chance that we would have seen more minutes for players in and around the fringes of the first team and potentially one or two B team players, given that we are not actually playing that weekend in the Lowland League. So that was a potential one to look at.
Is that a fair shout for you? Sorry, just thought I'd butt in.
Yeah,
of young players, you know, they play on the surface after all the time.
Yeah, look, it's funny. We actually spoke about it yesterday at the game. I wonder if it's in the manager's thoughts to start like an Alex Lowry tonight, an Adam Devine, or a Leon King. I'm not saying it's ideal for these guys, but they've probably played on Astro more than a lot of the first team players that we currently have. So it's an interesting one. I mean, Ben Davies is obviously one of those guys who you would worry about playing on this surface. You wonder if it's in the manager's mind. You know, does he start Leon? Alex, I mean, like, I'm of the same opinion as Andy here. If Alex isn't going to get the starts and the minutes he needs, I don't want him to be coming on for 10 and 15 minutes here and there. I'm not so sure that benefits him long term. I get the fact at the end of the day, Michael Beale's the man in charge. He will make that decision. But I'm just expressing my opinion. I've watched Alex for a few years now at the academy. I've seen him break into the first team. I know the ability the kid has. He is somebody that on any pitch can create something magical that will get us a goal. And I do wonder if on a night like tonight on that Astro pitch, if Alex is in the manager's mind, the same way Leon and the same way Adam. Borna obviously had to come off at the weekend. In his usual, I've got a wee injury in extra time and getting close to penalties. So obviously Adam comes on for that one. I mean, I have to come a bit of a standing joke, isn't it, with Borna now? Every time we get the extra time that Borna seems to have some type of niggle or, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think it's an interesting point and certainly one that we did speak about yesterday. So we'll have to wait until tonight to see what the squad is. But I wouldn't be surprised if we did see a couple of changes just because of that pitch. Scott touches on Phil Hollander, maybe needs to be released. It was interesting, that question I think was brought up yesterday in the press conference, wasn't it, Andy, that is it maybe the right time to let Phil go? And the manager obviously has worked with Phil. He was there when we signed the guy. So he was trying to be nice, polite, professional. But I take it in your eyes, you don't see a future for Phil Hollander at Rangers?
Nah, the fact he's still in that moon boot and can hardly walk without crutches, it doesn't seem like there's much hope of him coming back anytime soon, never mind coming back and being able to play a part and getting fit.
Yeah.
For me, I think it would be as well as releasing him and saving what we can on his wages.
Yeah.
If we can do some sort of deal with getting him off the books, and then that could be put towards even another centre half we could maybe bring in. But I can't see him playing much part again, to be honest.
Yeah. I think the chat maybe early on in the window, if my memory serves me right, that I think it was Malmo were being linked with him with a summer move. And I think that they kind of chat at that point and then kind of turn to, well, if Rangers let him go early, the fact he's just had a couple of, kids recently, maybe he would be allowed to go home a bit earlier, settle in, do some training at Malmo ahead of a summer move. So that's obviously interesting. And that is maybe the type of deal that maybe coming like towards the end of the window that could happen. I'll touch on another one. One of the guys asked about the B team needs to be playing at a much higher level. Do you think it'll ever happen? Well, it sounds like there's obviously going to be chats between now and the summer with regards to a change. Going by what we've been kind of told by by people that go to the games and like speaking to like different people, etc. It sounds like Rangers won't be in the Lowland League next year, but they'll be in something similar. I think there's a lot of talks going on between, like, the SFA, the SPFL, maybe some of the lower league teams in the Lowland League, how they're going to look at it. Because I think one of the things we heard was there's going to be a Lowland League, a Central League, and a Highland League, and the Rangers would maybe get into the Central League, but then they would have to work out which teams would go where. So, yeah, I think we'll certainly hear more and more and more about these things, I think, between now and the end of the season. So certainly I would keep an eye out for that one. And I think from what they are saying, it doesn't sound like Rangers will be in the Lowland League, but clearly so many things can change between now and then. So we'll just need to wait and see what happens. Brian saying he would start McLaughlin tonight. Devine, Kamara, Wright, and Arfield will all get the nod. A few people are asked. I'll come to you. Kind of one of the last questions before we kind of close down for today, Brian. Who are you starting in goals tonight?
Could be any one of the two. You just don't know.
McCrory might get his chance tonight. The
mysterious McCrory might get his chance. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you think you've got a rhyme and a reason to it, why he's going to pick a player, as in cup games or away games or home games or certain teams, and then he does the exact opposite. So I have no idea of his logic now picking the goalie. I don't know what his reasoning is. We all thought McLaughlin would play against Aberdeen because of his cross ball ability, but that didn't happen. So I really don't know. I'm kind of lost with the old goalie situation, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously the manager came out when he played McLaughlin in the game to say that he felt as though in that game he felt he would be better to come for the cross balls, and he's better with the ball at his feet, so he felt that would be the right game for him. Whereas obviously Allen comes back in for the semi-final and made a couple of great saves, to be fair to Allen. He did make some really good saves. It'll be interesting on that Astro pitch if there's yet again that thought that maybe the ball comes back to the goalkeeper a little bit more on that, and is it better to play McLaughlin on a night like this instead of McGregor? These are things that are going to continue to annoy people, I think, between now and the end of the season, the whole goalkeeping situation.
If I had to go with one or the other, do I go with McLaughlin?
Yeah, look, I think we're all realistic to understand that come the summer, we are probably going to see change there. I think we all accept that's the case. However, between now and the end of the season, I think we're just going to have to accept that the manager will maybe sort of alternate at times between the two. And that's just something we have to accept. I get the fact that not everybody's going to like that. I get the fact some people don't think Alan McGregor should be starting. There's others that say that John McLaughlin's not good enough to be in goals for Rangers. And these are the type of things that it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, this is why we're not on the training ground every day of the week. We don't see what's going on. We don't know what the goalkeeping coach is saying to the manager. We don't know what's going to be happening come the summer. Maybe they've already identified a couple of goalkeepers that they see as the future of the club for the next 3 to 5 years, and that we're just going to have to see through it until then before we can make that move. But yeah, that's something we're going to touch on in tomorrow's pod. I actually spoke to Martin about that, funnily enough, the goalkeeping situation. So after tonight's game, we can obviously talk about what happened at the game and then moving forward. So if anybody's in the chat right now, and if you're coming back tomorrow morning at 11 to join in the morning pod, if you see any good goalkeepers out there, fire their names into the comments and we'll obviously bring them up in tomorrow's pod. But thanks again, much appreciated. Another 34 minutes under the belt. So that's the third day in a trot. We've had a lot of views. We're really happy with the content. If you guys are happy with us and obviously you want us to continue doing this, we just wanted to test it over the week, then we will continue with it. But thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you all again very soon.